And we are live. Welcome everyone who is watching and who may watch in the future. This is Karen from Myth and Gears, and we are about to start. This is just really weird. Just a second. Okay, now I was hearing myself and that was just throwing me right off. Okay, so we'll start that again. We're about to start a new campaign run in Genesys called The Grim Secrets on Cobbled Streets. And I'm ready to get into this. So first we'll introduce our players. I'll send that to them. So the first is Chris.
Hi everybody, I am Chris Johnson, and tonight I'll be playing Gertie Hattie Bridges.
Very cool. Connor.
I'm Connor. I'll be playing as Private Eye Cornelius Merriweather.
And next we have Jeff.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jeff. I am going to be playing Willem the Hunter.
Finally. And Megan.
Hi everyone, I'm Megan, and tonight I will be playing Constable Emmett Sterling.
All right. So if I get this. I know what I'm doing, honest. I want to share. Okay, so what we find ourselves in a city called Paragon. It's a dark, grimy, smog-filled city. Factories spewing forth their foulness all over, everywhere in the city. The grime just kind of clings to you. And as we look around the night, it's foggy, as always. The air smells. The river that's nearby stinks of its foul, almost sewage smell. And we zoom through this city to a kind of a crooked back alley street where the buildings are kind of encroaching upon each other. It's twisty. And we find ourselves noticing in kind of a little opening, let's say, 5 figures. 4 in this case, actually. One's maybe hiding. We see that they are all looking at this grisly sight that's awaiting our eyes. That of a woman strung. It's hard to tell from what. It's like she's dangling there, but you're not quite sure what, because she's kind of touching the ground. She's limp, but there are these wires, these cables that go from each of her appendages, and you see them, they kind of go up and over through these pulley system and then down to this strange box on the ground. And as you're looking at this body, the grisly sight that welcomes you is her face is covered with some sort of cloth. And it's hard to see in this light, but you can, from the faint lamplight that's coming through, you can see that the cloth is kind of a dark brownish color, at least on half of it. And I'm going to open it up to you guys. What are you guys doing at this scene?
We see Cornelius. He's got a thick-rimmed hat and a long, wide-collared trench coat that obscures basically in the entirety of him. He's kind of pacing slowly and assuredly, casually, kind of back and forth across from this grisly sight. He's taking long drags on his cigar. Smoke rings kind of puff out into just to add more to the cloudy and smoggy skies as he's looking and analyzing this corpse. But he says nothing.
Constable Emmett Sterling is rushing around. He is trying to get people away from the scene, to make some room, to not sully any possible evidence that could be there. And so he's just kind of calling out, all right, everyone, nothing to see here. Keep on moving, keep it moving.
Willem is kind of taking this middle ground between the still private eye and the frantic constable. He's pacing around, kind of quizzically looking from place to place. His eyes almost seem to like wander into strange places for someone who seems to be investigating, though, where the body and the blood are the obvious marks that the police are looking at and the private eye are looking at. He almost seems to be moving into different places, scraping dust off of corners and sniffing at it as if it'll tell him something that nobody else can hear or see. It would probably be quite strange to people who are unfamiliar with seeing him.
There's the figure of Gertie kind of skirting around the crowd. She's kind of dressed a little raggedy, but all of her clothes are patched and repatched and neatly patched, if not the cleanest you've ever seen. And she watches the other onlookers as, she watches to see what they do, to see, and she's listening. She has an ear to whatever they may be muttering or murmuring, or conversations they're having amongst themselves, to see, she's kind of looking for suspicious, individuals amongst the crowd as they get shooed away by the constable.
So, Gertie, while you're amongst the crowd, you can hear people talking to each other, kind of whispering, like, is it him again? Is it the puppeteer? Is that the one? And you know from working with Bert that the newspapers have dubbed this killer, this foul creature that's been terrorizing the city this corner of the city for the last few weeks, named him the Puppeteer of Sanctuary Street. Because that is where you find yourselves right now. This is the hole, where the dregs of society come and live, called Sanctuary Street. It goes all along the river edge. It's about 3 or so streets inland from inland from the river. And the people who are on tough times, this is where they are found. And so the crowd that you're going through, you can tell that they're worried. This kind of thing, I mean, murders happen. They happen all over the place. But this kind of thing, this is not normal. And Constable Emmett, you're trying to get the people to back away. And they're not really listening. They are very curious at what's going on. So they kind of resist you.
Just a question.
Yeah.
Was was Emmett called into this, or like, did he just happen upon it?
You tell me, actually.
Okay. So I believe it was not Emmett who came across it, but a younger constable, and I think that after the alarm was sounded, I think Emmett was the first to respond. He would have immediately sent this younger officer off to the side. He's still green. He probably looked pretty green. And Emmett is just trying to keep people away long enough for the other constables and detective to come in. So he's just trying to his best, but you can obviously see that he's getting very exasperated.
Yes, I can imagine so. And Cornelius, why are you here, actually? Let's start there.
Well, why does rain fall? Cornelius is always at the scene of the crime. There's always a new stone to be unturned. And as the whispers on the street grow, he just caught wind of it and was on the scene of the crime. Almost a bit too quickly, as if he was just lurking nearby. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't, but there he is.
And so we find ourselves here. Emmett trying to keep control of the situation. Cornelius trying to find out what he can before the authorities get here. Gertie also trying to keep an eye to the ground and hear what's happening. And Willem, you are also... Why are you here in this place at this time?
He would probably stick out quite a bit compared to the other people. His like thick kind of leather clothing, and he would have like an axe that would be visible that's like notably like jagged, almost gruesomely so. Something that would seem excessive for just men or for tasks. But he's here because anytime you have murders this gruesome, this excessive, this with this much display and grandiosity to them, you always have to suspect that perhaps what's happening here is not just a man. While most people think that it's only men that commit such crimes, he knows that there's things further beyond. There's greater truth than just men in this world, and greater danger. He wants to make sure that this danger stays hidden from the other people, if it's here. He's here because something that did this might be beyond men, the supernatural. If it is, he needs to make sure it stays out of sight and is dealt with.
And so, Emmett, Cornelius, Gertie, Willem, it's probably about 15 minutes or so before the police, the full force, will be down here on this scene, and you will be shunted away. So you have about that much time. What would you like to do?
Cornelius is going to be looking at the streets in and around and out of here, any kind of pathways. He's looking for, I guess, tracks, if it makes any sense. Disturbances in the ground, and skid marks, drag marks, blood stains, and so on and so forth, before the chaos of authorities arrive and ruins this scene.
So I would like you to make me a see here, I want to say perception roll, but it could also perception or medicine, I think would work.
How about forensics?
Or forensics, that would be a perfect one.
Okay.
Yeah. Average difficulty, so that would be 2 purple.
So I have 2 purples.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, and then I have 4 intelligence and 1 forensics. So that's going to be 3 greens and a yellow.
That is correct. Yes.
Okay. Any kind of no blues and no blacks here?
I'm going to actually give you 1 black for the time of night and the fact that it's dimly lit.
All right. I have a hooded lantern that can remove a black from darkness.
That's perfect then.
Nice. I light a match. I kind of like look at, and I use the hooded lantern to really like investigate the area around. So we'll cancel out that black for the nighttime. That sounds like it.
Yeah.
Right.
And make your roll.
Boom! The first roll of the day. I got 2 triangles, looks like a sun, 3 what do you call them? Crosshairs and an X.
Okay, yeah. So the dice show everything that you've rolled, and then at the very bottom there it shows
the net result.
The net result after everything.
Gotcha. So I got one crosshair, which is 1 failure, right?
That is just a threat. So you fail.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and you have a threat. So in your cursory glance, you're finding it very difficult. There's a lot of people milling about already. So you can't see very much in the ways of tracks or anything leading away from this place. If there was, it's already been trampled on by already the people that have come and gone through here. 1 thread.
Perhaps my light and my kind of sleuthing about has caught the attention of some of the authorities that are on their way. Is that a threat?
Yeah, I would say that's a little bit too much for threat. So maybe somebody in the crowd has caught wind of you. They look at you.
Right.
Okay, so you're being noticed there.
Mm-hmm.
But what you have seen in your cursory glance is that there's not enough blood here for this body. In fact, you see very little, if any, at the scene. Okay.
And he makes note of that and notices the urchin in the crowd or the passerby, and immediately kind of like snuffs out his lantern and kind of, I guess, paces away from the scene a bit to not seem too, I guess, incriminating, but still kind of lurks leaning against a wall, an alleyway, just taking another drag as he kind of like hides his face down with his hat and up the collar with his trench coat.
Perfect. Willem, what are you doing?
So Willem is kind of going from place to place in the scene. And he's looking at just kind of the different, maybe even like scratches or if there's any damage or something on the walls. But not even just to see that the damage has occurred, but to see if there's any strange patterns in it. if the blood spirals in certain ways, if there are marks that look like scratches on the walls but are actually runes that might signal um, nefarious magics or monsters or something like that. These kind of signals that would look subtle to most people, but to him might stand out. I'm basically trying to see if there's any signs of supernatural activity going on in the area.
Okay, so you can give me a roll, perception, or
I have occult, if that would work.
sure, let's go with occult. Again, average difficulty with one setback die because of the dark.
Okay, so just to make sure that I'm building this right. So my intellect is 2 and I have 2 in occult, so that would that be just 2 yellow?
That is correct, yeah.
Okay, so just 2 yellow and 2 purple, and then it'll be the pool.
And 1 black.
And
Unless
1
you
black.
also have a lantern or something.
I might, but I don't. I have to look, so I'll just roll with the black for now.
Okay.
And that is a triumph.
That is a triumph. So you succeed and you get a triumph. So as you're looking around the body and the wall, you also notice that there's not nearly enough blood for anything. Like there's just literally nothing here except that what's on the covering of her face. But what you notice, and it catches your eye as you're going by, is there are 2 puncture marks on her neck. Just underneath where the lace handkerchief is lying. You can just barely see them. But there are 2. And some sort of liquid is coming out of it. You also notice that these wires, these kind of cables that are attached to the body, like they're embedded in her flesh. And they go up and over this pulley and down into this box on the ground. And for all intents and purposes, it looks like a music box. Constable Emmett, what are you doing?
I think that just as Willem has kind of noticed these things, he would feel kind of this tap, a little more gruff than just a tap. All right, come on, you can't be here. Move along. But as he says this to Willem, he is going to just kind of take a look at the body now that he's kind of closer to it, and while he's trying to get people away, also just to kind of look around, look at it, see if he can see anything, just out of morbid curiosity more than anything.
Okay, you can make me a roll. Perception, forensics, medicine. What kind of
I think it's mostly just a cursory glance. He's not really looking for anything, so maybe perception.
Okay, yeah, make a perception. Okay. 2 purples, 1 black.
So I got 2 advantage.
Okay, so you don't really see much more than what's already been described. The lack of, well, you probably don't even notice that at this point, the lack of blood.
Mhm.
But what you do notice with your advantage is that the body is missing a foot. Her right foot is missing. And then other than that, you do not really notice much in your cursory look.
Yeah, he's more, I think, focused on just keeping the area clear, waiting for the people, or I guess for the law to come along.
Yeah, I'd like you to also make me a what's the word? A leadership role.
What's the difficulty?
That'd be 2 still.
And no setback?
No setback on this one. No.
Okay. So I got a success and a threat.
Okay, so with this success, the people are actually starting to disperse for you. They realize they're not going to get any closer. They're not going to get to see much. It's cold. It's boggy. It's wet. And frankly, a lot of them don't want to be here when the police arrive anyway. So they are starting to leave. However, you said how many threats? 2 threat?
Just one.
Just 1 threat?
Yeah.
I think what happens is that one of them, as they're running away, or starts to spread the talk loudly about how the puppeteer has struck again as they leave the scene, and so the word is going to spread.
Okay.
Gertie, what are you doing?
So, Gertie has started to look upwards along the buildings and in between, in the little side alleys and things. She just kind of it's still kind of scoping out, kind of hoping to get a glimpse of maybe somebody who's, returning to the scene or seems to know a little much. And I think she's also keeping her eye out for the rest of the police force to show up, at which time she intends to hide.
Okay, so you can make me a roll. We have perception. I'm not sure what else other.
I have lore.
Yeah, even skullduggery if you have that.
I have skullduggery. Yep. Okay, let's do that one. So it's gonna be, and difficulty.
2 purples, 1 black.
Okay. I should look at my. When making skullduggery checks, my character removes 2 setbacks from any checks.
So no purple. Oh, sorry, no black. Just the 2 purple.
All right, here we go. Oh, lovely.
Wow.
So that's 5 successes and 3 threats.
Wow. Okay. So you were using skullduggery. What do you find out? So with your knowledge of everything that's going on and with your successes, you notice the victim's clothing. She seems like she's wearing a fine dress. You know, it's kind of posh, but the way, because you're so very particular about your own clothing, you know that though this looks posh, it was probably not this season's. It was definitely a couple of years ago. It's very out of fashion. And it's also very worn. It's not, it's been well used. And it's, you know, kind of dirty in places. Like this is definitely not a lady wearing this. This is somebody who's a little bit more down on their luck. You can tell that from the clothing. Even through all of the fact that at this point there have been rips and tears, probably from, well, you're not sure what. And you also notice this box, this music box. And man, you got 3 threats too, right? 5 successes. Okay. You have seen like music boxes like this before, and you know that you could wind it up.
Mm-hmm.
Like you've seen these kind of contraptions before.
Okay.
You can do that. I think part of what's happened with your threats, though, as you are looking around and you know, you kind of get distracted by looking at this body and this music box, that you actually bump into one of the people that are leaving, and they're going to turn and cuff you, and you can take 1 wound.
Okay. Oh, cuff me as in hit me.
Yeah, they backhanded you.
Fair.
How dare you step on them?
Ouch! Well, excuse me.
Watch where you're going.
Same to you. And I cast around looking for Inspector Cornelius and try to catch his eye.
And you can probably catch his eye. He's standing, you know, good couple dozen yards away, just leaning all, you know, coolly against a wall and just making smoke rings.
I'll actually head your way.
And he makes no reaction to your approach, but you know that means that you have his attention.
I lean casually against the wall, but not facing you. And I lean against that wall, and I just looking for all the world, like I'm looking anywhere but at you. Like I'm still surveying the scene, and I just quietly, she's a bit fancy, but clearly not of her station. Did you notice the music box?
I did. Seems the woman's a bit down on her luck. Strung up and all.
You want me to climb under there and check out the inner workings?
Well, it seems that, like a fresh fallen pile of snow, it's time for us to leave here soon.
Aye. And I wander back off. Kind of hugging the shadows at this point. Ready to melt down an alleyway.
And Cornelius is watching as the officials arrive on the scene, just from a distance. but still surveying and watching and analyzing nonetheless from his dark vantage point.
At this point, Constable Emmett, your green partner, your young partner, I believe his name is Robert, is that right? He comes running back at you and he's like, Sir, oh, we've got a problem. It's not going to be our boss is coming. It seems the boys from the L Division are going to get here first. And that's not going to be a good thing. I've heard you talk about them.
Oh. You can just see that Emmett's shoulders just slump, and there's a brief eye roll. Well, you better make yourself scarce now, or else they'll ream you out. I got it from here.
Is there anything you want me to do? Can I help?
Unless you have a way to bring this woman back to life and make the L Division not come, no.
I could try to dog their steps a bit if you want. Give you a little bit more time.
It's all right. We're just delaying the inevitable at this point. But better get ready for a botched investigation. And he kind of does this almost fake smile. But, well, poor woman. No one's gonna catch your killer now.
And how loudly do you say this?
It's pretty quiet, as quiet as Emmett can manage, while still having Robert hear it.
So, what do you do at this point then, Emmett?
Emmett is... He's going to take a quick look around, seeing that people are kind of making their way past, and not... There is a little bit less of a commotion. And he's going to go up and the cloth that the face is covered, is it like bound in any way, or does it just look like it's just thrown on?
It looks like it's been very carefully placed to cover the face, but it is not attached in any way.
Very, very gingerly, and I would think that he would have either some gloves, or he would put on just some standard issue gloves when it gets cold, and he would very gingerly kind of lift up this cloth, trying not to disturb it as much as possible.
I would like you to make me a roll as well. Perception or forensics or even medicine in this one. In this case, it's going to be just an easy difficulty because you are right there.
Okay. Probably forensics this time, since he's actually looking. So sorry, that's just one set.
One purple and one black.
Cool. So that's 2 success and 1 threat.
Okay. So as you're lifting this cloth up, you notice two things right away. First, she's missing an eye. And the reason this handkerchief that's been placed over her was so wet with what you can now tell is blood is that the skin from her right side of her face has been removed. So she's sorry, Chris.
So she's missing half her face?
Yeah, so I'm gonna stop screen sharing. Yeah, so there's kind of like this line around her face, half of the skin on her face and the eye on that one side are missing. In place of where the eye should be, you see a purple flower. Did it share? Did I just freeze? It's doing something weird on my end. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Is it sharing anything or is it just being weird?
It just says share your screen.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see pictures.
Okay, I'll stop sharing. I'll try that again. No, it's kind of dead. Let's try that again. There. Do you see anything?
We saw the flowers for a brief moment, but
yeah.
now it's
Okay, weird. I will. Is being weird. We'll try this again. And share. No?
Nope.
Okay. Okay, so you see purple flower.
Can I tell what kind it is, or like is it a common type of flower that, you know, kind of everyone knows, or no?
Maybe. Give me a nature. What's nature? It's not a nature. There's a. You give me a medicine or a survival check.
Okay. What's the difficulty?
A 1. Easy.
I'm gonna do survival, I think. That's 2 advantage I got.
Okay, so you can't tell in this light what it is, but you can smell. You can smell it. It almost has this odor that you're used to. You've smelled it before. Your wife used it in cooking, but you can't quite place it at this point.
Okay.
Yeah. So the second thing that you notice is that there is something in her mouth.
Okay.
And I want to, Gertie.
Okay.
As Emmett's lifting up this handkerchief, the shock actually of seeing this face, this mutilated face, kind of causes him to drop the handkerchief. That's where the threat is. So it kind of falls down. But in that, you You recognize this poor woman from the good side of her face. This was your sister.
No. No, no. Kitty, no. I mean, I'm gobsmacked.
So while Gertie is gasping in shock and dismay, what are Cornelius and Wilhelm doing?
Cornelius is just watching, and he sees the threat, not the threat, the handkerchief fall to the ground. He sees all of this happen. He sees the woman's face, doesn't recognize it, but at least knows who this is. I'm sorry, knows that, remembers the face. Does that make any sense? And he'll actually walk up to Emmett. Quite a sight.
God, Cornelius, what are you doing here? I didn't expect you till at least a few hours.
Was in the area.
Well, L Division is coming, so if you know what's good for you, you make yourself scarce in a few minutes.
Oh, you always worry about me.
Not worried, I just don't want to risk my job again trying to get you out of jail.
Noted. Well, then I imagine that our fates will be strung together in the near future. This is what he says as he walks away.
Always a poet, weren't you?
And he doesn't say anything to that as he's just somber and melancholy and walks away. And he gets to hack out for dodge to make sure that he doesn't get noticed by the cops.
Yeah, and I think Willem is also kind of approaching towards the body, going in and out as people look in and leave, kind of trying to blend in with their motion as to not get too much attention drawn to himself. But for the most part, kind of just ignoring the order from the constables to back away and pretending almost as if he was supposed to be there. But this, you said, if I remember correctly, that there was kind of like a fluid that was kind of coming out as well that seemed strange, if I heard that correctly. And that would definitely grab Willem's attention, and he'd be curious about if he could find a way to determine what that is.
Yeah, absolutely. There's in this light, it's hard to tell what kind of color it is, but it doesn't really look like blood. It's not, what's the word? Not opaque enough to be blood. It's too watery almost. But yeah, it's coming out of one of the holes in the neck.
Yeah, I kind of, with gloved hand, kind of try to touch as little as I can to not be disturbed, assuming that I wouldn't be interrupted by the constable nearby as I tried to do that, because I want to get a better look at it to see if I can figure out what it is, but that's probably not going to happen.
I almost see like you could possibly do it while Emmett's back is turned talking with Cornelius, maybe?
Yeah,
'Cause I think
I imagine
it's-
there's
Yeah, I
like
think of
this.
Emmett
Like, he comes up to look right as you turn to be like, "Oh God, what are you doing here?" And it's like right at that moment that kind of the opportunity strikes. And I'll just kind of like slide just the tiny gloved fingers across it so I can like bring it in closer to like smell or look at it.
Yeah, so you get enough on your glove that you can tell it's not thick enough to be blood. It's a thinner liquid. And when you go to smell what's on your glove, it kind of takes you aback. It's like it's very strong and pungent. Very chemically, like it smells like a chemical, not something organic, really. Like it doesn't smell like what you would expect it to smell. If it definitely has that almost like an ammonia kind of a smell. It's just this foul, sharp smell.
And you said of her, like it doesn't look like it's been like it put into her or onto her, but it's actually something that's coming out from her.
Give me this could be a medicine, perception, or forensics roll.
I have medicine. So I will give that a roll here. Let's see. What's the difficulty going to be on this one?
2. With a 1 black.
Okay. Right. Not quite as good at this. We'll see how it. Nope. That's just going to be only a threat.
Okay. With the way the body is strung up, you can't really get a really good look at where whether the liquid is coming from her, like if it was inside and coming out, or if it was put into her. You can't tell from this angle. And I think with the threat, you maybe bump the body a little bit and cause it to.
I think it's actually, if you don't mind.
Sure. Yeah.
I think that chemical smell kind of hit me a little stronger than I thought, and it makes me start coughing.
Okay, that's perfect. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's just like, like, and he catches himself in a moment, but the damage is already done.
I think at that, Emmett would just kind of wheel around. Hey, what are you doing here? I thought I told everyone to get away from the scene. Get. And he's just gonna like, he's coming up on you like quite aggressively. Just trying to be intimidating.
Yeah, and the intimidation would fall slightly flat, as there would be very little response unless you actually were to use force. Willem would almost ignore the posturing, and just kind of like wave his hand at you, almost dismissively, not quite dismissively, but close. Say, just having a look. Knowledge is important. Comes from all places. Might find that you'll need me. I'll just like throw that out there as if it's fact.
Yeah. I think at that, Emmett would just kind of scoff. Don't look like a police officer to me, so you don't belong here. And I cannot see myself needing help from. And he just kind of looks at you just as like a, who are you kind of that look. You best be getting on now.
Well, it'll just kind of like put his hands up like it didn't mean to cause any trouble. and he'll turn away. And as he's walking away, like after he's already kind of taken a couple steps back, he'll just kind of tilt his head backwards towards you and just say, "All right, well, if you need any advice on the fang puncture marks or the chemical smell coming from her that you didn't see, just let me know." And then he'll just continue to walk.
And for an instant, Emmett his brow just kind of furrows. He just mutters, "Stupid citizen thinks he can," and just mumbling. But he would actually take a look at these puncture marks that he clearly had missed.
So you can't. What are you going to do? Like, are you just looking at what he mentioned to you?
Yeah, and also kind of smelling, just getting kind of close to the body.
I would like you to make me a coordination check as you lean in.
Oh no. What's the difficulty?
Make it a 2.
Okay.
No setback on this one though.
All right. Okay. 3 success and 1 advantage.
Okay, so you, as you're stepping in to see what he's pointed out, like you, everything that I mentioned before, you see that, right? You now see the puncture, you see this liquid coming out of one of the holes. But you you stumble on that handkerchief that you dropped earlier, and you fall towards the body, but you manage to catch yourself. But in so doing, you actually touch her. That's what stops you from like falling right into her. And that's when you feel her dress, and there's something that crinkles in it. It's kind of probably around where a pocket might be. You feel it's not cloth. There's something, I guess, paper, some sort of paper there. And that's what you get with your 3 successes and 2 advantage.
So I think he would look around very quickly to see if he's, there's still no other police officers around, and he's going to just quickly reach into the pocket.
Do you look at it at this point, or do you just pocket it yourself?
He would just pocket it. I think that he thinks that he has like minutes left, so he's not going to waste any time.
Yeah, and you probably are actually hearing at this point from down the street the sounds of those L Division boys arriving. But before they get here, they're still a ways off. Gertie, what are you doing?
Well, Gertie had almost as if the stiffness disappeared from her bones and they'd turned to jelly, just kind of slid right down the wall that she had been leaning against and had a bit of a breakdown for a minute. She hasn't seen her sister in years, at least a couple. And now, after wondering where she has been all this time, here she is. And so, she dealt with the initial shock. And now she's kind of looking up and surveying the scene and seeing Officer Emmett. And she kind of, mentally picks herself up by the bootstraps, so to speak, and brings herself to her feet and makes her way to him. "Excuse me, sir.
Sorry, ma'am, but this is an active crime scene. You're going to have to move along.
Sir, I know who that is.
Oh?
It's she's my sister.
Oh. I see. Well, then you might want to stick around. The other officers should be coming, and I'm sure you can give them some very important information. I am so sorry you had to see your sister like this. And you can see that Emmett, there is like true compassion in his eyes. This is a true emotion coming out.
Thank you, sir. And
What is your name, ma'am?
my name's Gertie.
And you would see him kind of take out a notebook, and he starts scribbling. And your sister, what is her name?
Kitty Bridges. I haven't seen her in a year and a half, 2 years.
Mm.
She used to work in a factory over in the factory district, a couple streets over, but don't know where she's been since then.
Do you know her last place of residence?
Sorry, sir. No, I don't.
That's all right. Do you know, I know you haven't seen your sister in a while, but did you have any enemies that you knew of? Anyone who might have been after her?
No. She was a hard worker, and she used to look out for me, but can't imagine anybody taking a disliking to her.
If you don't mind me asking, ma'am, how did you and your sister become estranged?
Well, everybody fell on hard times. Our father died when we were quite young, and well, our mother did what she could by us, but one day she just disappeared. My sister and we have a brother did what they could, but I imagine it was just too much. Take care of a little sister and try to keep us together and put food on the table.
Yeah. Yes. And what was your brother's name?
Stuart.
And he scribbles again in his notebook. Thank you, ma'am. I'm sure the other officers will have many more questions for you, but if you need anything, I often work these streets, so you can often find me if you need anything.
Thank you, sir. She looks a little stunned at this, like she's surprised at your kindliness.
Yeah, you can see that there is, kind of that compassion, but there's also something else, kind of like as if he can relate or empathize or knows what you're you're going through maybe a hint of recognition in terms of what you're talking about. What was that? So by this time, are the police, are they, can Emmett see them, or are they still afar?
You can hear them come, for sure. There's enough time for everybody to do like one more thing if they wanted to at this point before they're here. If there's anything anybody would like to do.
Emmett's gonna take a quick look in her mouth, because you had said there was something in there, and he looks to Gertie, and he kind of lowers his voice. Listen, I know the people who are coming here, they're not the greatest, in my opinion, at doing their job. Things get missed, and I don't want that to be the case with your sister. So I'm just going to have a quick look. But if this could be between us, I'd very much appreciate it.
Of course, sir. If there's any way I can help, obviously I want the person who did this found and
Of course.
stopped.
So I think at this point, Emmett is already hurrying over to Kitty, and he's gonna very gingerly just kind of open her mouth, if he can. Hopefully, yeah.
So you're going to try to open his mouth and see what's inside?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or, sorry, her mouth.
If it's not like rigid, if there's any form of resistance, he would immediately not try.
You could probably fairly easily put like 2 fingers in and scoop if you wanted to. That would be.
Yeah, then he would do that then. Yeah.
So as you gird yourself to touch this, I mean, she's bloodied face. You stick your couple of fingers in her mouth and do the swiping motion, and you definitely feel something hard in there. And chat's killing me. This oblong, roundish object kind of is dislodged, and I want to see if you catch it or not. Yeah, I think you know what you're doing. So you're able to kind of like scoop it into your hand. And what you notice when you look at it, and all of a sudden, that smell you smelt makes sense. What you're staring at is a clove of garlic.
Mm.
And that flower you now recognize as a garlic flower. Does anybody else want to do anything?
I think as Willem is kind of making his way away from the like crime scene proper, he's just kind of gesturing and sauntering as if he's just going to walk away. But in actuality, his eyes are going to be kind of darting from place to place as he looks. I'd like to kind of see if there's any signs of struggle or in and out footprints or tracks, even in like weird places that you wouldn't normally think to look. Might be. I want to see if like this event was like, if it looks like it was done by force, and I can see any evidence of something like that being the case, or if this was almost allowed until the last moment when it actually got violent.
Okay, make me a roll. So you can do perception or
I do
s-
have that.
let's see, even what else could we do? There's forensics if you took it.
I do not have that one. I have perception, occult, and medicine. What my knowledge skills that would relate? I think perception probably makes the most sense.
Okay, then make a perception check.
Difficulty?
Yeah, difficulty 2 with the 1 black setback.
Mm-hmm.
There's story points. We forgot to mention that. There's 4 story points in your player pool and 1 in the GM pool at this point. So you could use a story point to like upgrade a dice if you wanted to, or introduce something cool to the story.
Yeah, I think I'll upgrade it so my green turns into a yellow. So I'll have 2 yellow instead of a yellow and a green.
Okay.
I think that's kind of going to be evidenced by kind of a shift in focus of kind of not coming up with as much information as you would have hoped given the circumstance. But seeing enough to pique his interest, he knows that this is important. And he'll kind of make sure that he spends a little bit of extra time, perhaps more than he should, to try to get a good eye.
Okay.
And that's just going to be a success with nothing else.
Okay, for success, you were specifically looking for whether it was a struggle here, that kind of thing, right?
Yeah,
Like
signs of tracks or struggle, yeah. The evidence of people coming in and out, especially by force.
So you notice that there are 0 signs of struggle. There are, in fact, signs that indicate that whatever happened did not happen here. There's a lack of blood for, what has been done to the body. There's this obvious time has been spent to string her up the way she's done. So with your success that it absolutely did not happen here. And I would even say with that success, you notice that the handkerchief is lying on the ground, just under the body, almost neglected, forgotten that it was there.
Perfect. Yeah. Willem's gonna kind of file that away. And as he kind of leaves the central crime scene location at the order of the constable, he's going to make sure that he's never too far. Like he's not going to actually leave entirely. He's going to kind of hang around on the outskirts, just where nobody tells him that he needs to move away, but he's not close enough to cause a scene. But he'll still be within reach because he has a feeling that he might be able to contribute something.
And Cornelius, you didn't want to do anything?
Now Cornelius scrammed after the horse trots of Division L are coming in.
Okay, so is he gone? Or
Yeah,
is
he's gone to the wind.
Okay. And Gertie?
Is there a visible way inside this box?
It definitely has a lid. It's like a music box. Yeah.
Oh, a lid, like where she's suspended over it would be under her.
Yeah, it's kind of to the side and back against the wall a little bit. So like
Okay.
she's strung up almost like against one of the walls with her legs are touching the ground. Well, her 1 foot, because she's only has the one. It's touching the ground, like as if she was on the ground. And then these wires kind of go up, around, and down into this music box that is kind of sitting beside the wall off to the side of her.
And it's I assume it's big. It's not just like a little box that you'd look in as something you can get inside, or?
Yeah, it'd be kind of like the size of like a jewelry box almost, right?
Oh, okay.
Like there's a lid you could open.
Oh, that's unexpected. So I want to. Okay, so music boxes, to Gertie's knowledge, normally start to play when you open the lid.
Yes, if they've been wound, they they will.
She does not want to open the lid then. Okay, never mind. She doesn't want to do anything. She's just gonna kind of stay off to the side. To be ready to answer questions. Little that she can offer.
So as Cornelius has disappeared and Willem's gone into the shadows, Gertie's standing off to the side, kind of waiting. And Emmett, you're by the body still?
Yeah, in preparation, he's going to want to put a comfortable distance between himself and the body, but wait for the police, or the L division.
L division. And you know this L division is, they're the rowdy, like, they're not like your division, which are mostly, you know, like you're actually keepers of the peace. You know, the L division has a really bad reputation for being a little bit brutal by maybe not doing things by the book so much. And as they come close, Gertie, you recognize one of these L division constables as one of the guys who gives you nothing but grief every time he sees you. He is not a pleasant sort. He's probably roughed up yourself, your friends, pretty much everybody you know. What are you doing?
Well, when I see him, I'm not sticking around. So I take the closest alleyway and disappear into the shadows. And I'm going to head for the newsroom. Well, for wherever I normally meet Bert.
Now let's think back at his little newsroom there, his almost like, I guess, what are they called? The print room, that he's got the press room. There you go.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, so I'll head his way.
Okay, and I'm going to take a little break right here, just as the L division is about to confront you, Emmett, as you are the only one left here. So if you'll take a short 5-10 minute break, and we'll be back in a little bit. think we're all back. So this loud, boisterous crew of about 4 policemen are coming around the last of the corner. They're just yards away from you, Emmett. And as they come, they kind of use their electric truncheons, and they, kind of hit pretty much any of the people that are still around there, telling them to like, back off, get out of here, it's not yours, go home, you're not wanted, that sort of thing. And they're kind of brutally pushing them and sending them away. And the leader comes up to you and, what you doing here? This is our beat.
No, it's not. Didn't get the memo. About a week ago, it got moved to our division because you guys were doing such a stellar job.
We ain't got no memo. Nothing like that's passed through us. As far as we're concerned, this is our beat. So you just shove along now.
Right.
We got this.
And you don't want any information? Maybe about the witnesses? Any information like that?
Witnesses? I don't see no witnesses. Saw this. I mean, it's just a bloody tot, strung up there, nothing new. And they start to push their way in, and they look like they're just going to cut her down. What do you do?
Don't you? He would quickly kind of, not exactly push his way in, but just as best he can, just put himself in between. Don't you think the commissioner would want to see something like this?
No. This is not the commissioner's job. This is ours. We'll write it up right proper. Tell him what's going on. Another tart got her throat cut. Same old thing.
She's strung up. Her throat is not cut. And you know what? All right. How about this? You give me 10 more minutes with the body, and I won't tell the commissioner about all the infractions you have made over the last, I don't know, week. Let's do it. Let's put it that there. I know there's much more, but reasonably, let's just say a week.
He laughs at you. You want 10 more minutes with the body? I didn't know you rolled that way.
Did I stutter?
I want you at this point to make a it's not intimidation. What is it called here?
Coercion?
Coercion. Or leadership.
Ooh, I might do leadership. He's trying to really assert himself. What's the challenge?
So in this case, it is going to be, I think it's actually going to be pretty hard for you to kind of talk this guy down. So 3 purples.
I can, yep. Nope, that's a failure and a threat.
He just laughs at you. No, you move along now. And I think at this point, like, he kind of pushes you to the side. And you had said something about her throat wasn't cut, and he's like, takes his like a dagger, he's like slices her across the neck. You can try to stop him if you want to.
No, he would just watch.
Yeah. Now her throat's cut. You got anything more to say?
I look forward to seeing which poor sod you put in jail for this one. And I think Emmett would just begin walking away.
Okay. And he's going to let you walk away. And you can see that all your fears were coming true. They're not checking the scene. They're not doing anything. They are just simply cutting her down and manhandling her, like, pretty roughly, and just carting her up, cleaning up the scene. Who is still in the shadows at this point? We have Willem, you're still hanging around there?
Yeah, Willem's basically on the outer edge of this whole exchange, as close as he can nudge himself towards the crime scene before people start to tell him to move away again. Is where he'll kind of hang, like right at that space.
And Cornelius,
I think he's probably looking at what's going on from some rooftop or something.
Okay, so both of you, and Emmett too, if you are watching. Gertie, did you stay around where you could see, or do you just sorry?
I just literally left, went to the news office.
Okay, yeah. So the three of you can make is it perception or even vigilance checks on this one.
Artie, what's the difficulty?
2. No black die this time because they brought enough light that it would all be seen.
I got a success and a threat. Or 2 successes. Oh no, sorry. 2 successes and 1 threat.
Okay.
I got advantage and nothing else.
I got 2 success and 2 threat.
Okay, so each of you, not you, Willem, you don't have to worry about this, but the 2 of you that got the threat, each take a strain damage from just watching. Sorry, from watching this degradation of this crime scene. Like, it hit you really hard, Cornelius. The sheer disrespect that they have for the evidence, and you, Emmett, like, this is not what you were trained to do. But you both notice that in all of the hullabaloo, the cutting down of the body, the dragging her away, the taking of the music box, all that stuff, that handkerchief that was on her face that fell to the ground is completely forgotten about as it's trampled kind of into the mud and cobbles that are there. And so they leave, and it is left behind.
I'm not sure that Emmett would come back. I think he's heading to somewhere else.
Cornelius, you're the only other one that saw.
Cornelius doesn't take action, but he just kind of takes note of it. Actually, no. You know what? After the cops, the constables have left, he'll descend from this rooftop, and he'll kind of just appear in the shadows as he always does, next to Emmett again. And he kind of bends down and picks up this handkerchief. You see that his hands are in gloves, probably calfskin, and holds it up in the light and kind of looks at it in the moonlight. And Emmett would see this.
I think Emmett is just kind of like grumbling to you about L Division and just like, one day I tell you, they're gonna get what's coming to them. Oh.
It's like a child at a carnival. It's always the little things that get left behind.
Right.
And he's going to look at the doily, any kind of like doiliness of the handkerchief, and any kind of fine details to it, as he's using a really keen eye to look at it.
So this handkerchief, it's definitely a lady's handkerchief. It's not a gentleman's. Well, what class are you from? Like, you're fairly wealthy, right?
I came from
wealth.
wealthiness, but yeah.
Yeah, so
currently I'm not that well off.
You would recognize that this handkerchief is actually quite fine. Well, it would have been. It's filthy right now. It's covered in dirt and mud and blood, and it's disgusting. But the fabric is extremely fine. It's definitely not something that the poor victim would have owned. And in your inspection of it, you notice that they're monogrammed on it are the initials RM.
Does it smell of any kind of perfume or odor besides the grit of the mud?
Give me a perception check.
All right. How many difficulties here?
I'm going to say 2 because it is covered in all sorts of nastinesses.
And 1 failure, 2 advantage. I'm not rolling that well today.
Okay, so you do not succeed in smelling a perfume or anything. But you have 2 advantage. So what do you notice? In one of the corners, you could just make out a fingerprint. It's very faint, but it is there. Like it's a bloodied fingerprint.
And he will fold it up, handkerchief, making express notice not to just to mar the fingerprint much.
Okay.
And he'll say to Emmett, "It's on cold nights like these that I yearn for a nice bottle of scotch. Why don't we head down to the local dive?"
You and me both. Yeah. I think it's time.
And I
I
guess
think
we
around
make our
here,
way
like
to some... Go ahead.
the both of you would probably hear like the dull thud of boots on the ground, as Willem would walk kind of hands in jacket pockets towards the both of you. You just kind of look. I think he would take note of the handkerchief in your hand, but wouldn't say anything. But it'd be obvious that he'd look at it. He kind of gestured to the door where the L Division just left, and just kind of shrug his shoulders. Well, now that the children have made a mess, suppose we can start the real work. Or at least I will, if you guys won't.
We're both like draft horses, you and I. Doing the work yet, only for a carrot.
Emmett would turn to Cornelius. You know this guy?
I know him like a man knows a freckle on his cheek. You forget about it sometimes until you have it pointed out. And all you have are sour thoughts.
A lingering
Right.
frustration that never goes away, always pestering.
Like a
Reminded
freckle on
of
your
the
cheek.
worst moments. He'll kind of laugh. Yet, surprisingly effective, despite everything.
You can just say, Emmett, we're not on the best of terms. Let's see.
So what are you, some sort of private investigator too? Seem to come a dime a dozen these days.
I guess you could say that. I'll kind of give a side-eye glance towards Cornelius. Not of the same ilk as this one, mind you, but... And they'll just kind of shrug and trail off.
You said those were fang marks on her neck. How could you tell?
Well, I guess it's hard to say for sure. They could have been punctured otherwise, but the marks are consistent. If I had to
Consistent?
guess, and he would like say this with just the most absurd casualness to it, as if he's remarking that a dog would walk down the street. He would say, for all I know, it could be a vampire.
And you would hear just this huge snort come
And
from Emmett.
Cornelius gives you Emmett like the... Like kind of like not like a side eye, but like do you see what I have to work with here? Like a disapproving glance, whatever, that he shares with you. Like, check out this guy. Ooh, what a loony. Cornelius just takes another drag on his cigar.
Look,
Maybe
you don't have to believe everything I say. Take what I say at face value, but I think you'll find me most useful anyways. For example, did you notice that the body had substantially less blood than would be consistent with a wound of that style?
I did.
I'm guessing not. No. We're on the same page at least.
Same page, perhaps, of a different book.
Strange
My book does
substance
not have vampires
coming
in it.
out of there. Strange wound coming from their neck. Had a sort of chemical smell to it. Unfortunately, wasn't able to tell what it was. You may not think that there are things like vampires, and that's fine. You'll see someday, soon enough, that you might be wrong. But I have a good eye and a good arm. That should be enough.
Why don't you tell us more? Sharing a glass. I'm sure there's room for a third. If you'll have
Look
him.
over to Emmett and say, if it pleases you.
Right, well, it's not like everyone's jumping up and down to help, and you look like you have a keen eye. All right? Just a drink. And we'll talk.
Nothing more, nothing less. He'll smile.
There is another person I want to talk to. The L. Those bastards. They're not going to talk to her. The woman, strung up, her name was Kitty. She has a sister. I talked to her.
Is it
Perhaps she
funny?
can-
The kitty is stuck in the ball of yarn, it seems.
I'm going to need so many drinks for your anecdotes, Cornelius. She buggered off before those idiots came.
Did you get her name?
Gertie.
Never heard of her. Cornelius would say. But it almost seems like a bit too swift of a claim for it to be truthful, if it makes any sense.
Yeah,
Didn't-
Willem's eyebrow would kind of go up at the mention of the name too, as if there was like a sudden hit of realization, but then it would immediately fall down. And he would look over to Cornelius as if to suspect him instead.
Emmett's looking at Cornelius. I didn't think you did. Do you?
No, don't know her.
Come on, Cornelius. If you're hiding something, there's a dead woman.
I'm sure a
And I've
sip of
gotten
scotch
you
will
out
help
of...
loosen my lips.
And Emmett would turn...
Regardless.
Emmett would turn to Willem. He does this all the time. Gets me to buy him a drink. Right.
Secrets have their price, and prices must be paid. I'll just kind of smile over towards Cornelius. Regardless, and I'll change the subject before we can get too hostile. If this Gertie knows this woman, or knew, he'll say callously, we'll need to find her and talk to her. It'd be valuable information.
I agree. And Emmett would just look pointedly to Cornelius.
You said she left the scene. Strange for a woman to leave the scene in this time of day. Or is it?
Trauma can drive people to do strange things.
It's a
I
wicked
wouldn't
beast.
question her motivations too much.
Are we heading down the last then? Are we gonna satiate a nice parched tongue? And he like holds his flask out and like shakes it, and like the little splish splash of like 1 or 2 droplets left in it to show that it's like considerably empty.
I still think we should find her. Before we go get a drink. Let that be your motivator, Cornelius. That we don't get a drink until we find her. So the quicker we find her, the quicker we can get a drink.
And then like as if it was just like the easiest thing in the world, Cornelius will say, the woman left this way. She was heading down this street and turned that way, and then further still went this way to the news office. And like just in like elaborate detail of like where this woman went. My guess is she'd be either at the post office, the garbage heap, or maybe even one of them local dives.
Cornelius, Emmett just kind of throws up his hands and starts the way that Cornelius had said.
Yeah, Willem will just kind of grab your shoulder, perhaps a little too roughly, Cornelius, and laugh a little bit as he does so. good to see you again, he'll say, and you can't tell if he means it or not.
And he'll say likewise, as he takes another drag. And then he'll be the last to start walking down.
So Gertie, as you leave and you go towards where you would normally meet Bert, with his news offices there, you realize that it's kind of really late at night, and you get there, and just as you suspect, it's locked up for the night. And as you turn to maybe go, where would you start to head?
I would head for the bar that I know Bert frequents. In fact, I will spend a story point to go to that bar.
What's the bar called?
Oh, Rusty Keg.
Rusty Keg. And it's probably what, just across the street or so from different offices. And inside, you find Bert, like you thought you would. And he's in his normal place in one of the kind of tables along the side. Somewhat a booth, but not quite. It's got one little half wall behind it. And he's just, drinking there. What do you do?
I slide into the seat across from him. He's done again,
Gertie, what are you doing here? Girl, what are you doing here?
Just left and I'm shaking. Like, I'm probably, clenching my fists a little bit to try to hide it. I just left a horrible, horrible scene, Bert.
At the place I sent you, at the fine establishment of my, I won't go into the names here, but that jeweler I sent you to look at
was on the way back from there on Sanctuary Street.
What are you talking about, girl?
The puppeteer.
No.
One of his victims.
Can you describe it? Can you get a picture? Can we draw this? This would be headline news.
Yeah, and Bert, I got a personal stake in this.
I don't understand.
The victim. The victim was my sister. And she's got tears just kind of quietly trickling down her face. But she takes a deep breath.
Yeah, and as you say that to him, the glass that he was holding just slips out of his grasp and shatters on the floor. And he reaches across to grab your hand.
She
Are you sure?
Allows the contact. Yeah. I hadn't seen her a year and a half, 2 years. But it was her, right? It was Kitty. And Bert. I talked to an officer that was on the scene. There were more officers on the way, but he let slip that the team that was on the way, not the best at their job. I don't want this bastard to keep getting away with this.
And Bert, he's looking at you, and nothing but compassion on his face. And he's like, Gertie, I'm so sorry. What I said earlier about drawing the picture and using it for headline, I'm sorry. That was just not right, not called for. We'll get this guy. We'll use our powers to get him. We'll find this man, this monster.
Thank you. But you know what? I think if there's anything I can contribute, that I can tell you, that I can share, even if it's drawing a picture, I'll do it. I'll do it for Kitty. There were a couple other folks there too. That guy Corny, I see him around sometimes. Throw him a bit of information here and there. Maybe he picked something up.
Do you think you could ask him?
I can try. He doesn't know it was Kitty. The only person I talked to besides you is that officer that didn't think to get his name. But when I saw who was coming, I couldn't stay.
Who was it?
You know that awful how would I know them? I guess
you would know them as the L division. They've got
the
a
L
pretty
division.
good, pretty big rep for
that
horrendous.
That awful L division. That bully that's always harassing everybody, bullying everybody. He's an idiot. There's no way he can be trusted to solve this.
Yeah, he's not going to do nothing. You know that. Nothing happens on his beat. They're worse than the criminals themselves. And he's the one that's got your sister now, the body?
Yeah, they were just closing in as I cleared out.
Did you manage to find anything before?
Well, it was bad, Bert. There was a music box, and you know, his MO.
I'm so sorry, Gertie.
There was this weird purple flower, you know, where her eyes should have been. It was familiar somehow, but I can't place it. And there's not much else I can tell you.
So I think at this point, the three of you, Cornelius, where were you taking them?
Cornelius is probably pretty spot on with his knowledge of where Gertie goes, especially because he knows of Gertie's connections to Bert and then the press. And so he'd guide them down that alleyway that has like, I want to say like a hobo, like just alley, and then like a really janky bar called the Rusty Keg, and there's the press room way down the ways too. But as he passes the Rusty Keg, kind of he breathes in. You smell that? Smell of a fish longing for sea. Wait, no. Smell of two companions reuniting. Well, she's definitely not here. Might as well hit the flasks.
So you took us into the bar?
No, but it's by the bar. But like I think that like the alleyway is like a kind of a dead end or whatever, and there's obviously no one here except for like some poor sick leprosy people that are down in some dark alleyway.
And across the street from the Rusty Keg would be there, and across the street, the alley is these closed newspaper office, this press office. So you can see that it's there would be nobody at the press office at this point.
All right, well, I'll look for her tomorrow. We just head into this bar then and chat here.
And Cornelius gives a small, a sly smile as you say that she's not here, and will be the first to enter the bar.
So you are the first, Cornelius. You're the first to enter the bar.
Yep. But I got my collar popped and my hood, my hat down, so that you can't even see any of my face.
So what do you do when you go inside?
I kind of just take note of everything that's going on, the smells, the sights. I see all the patrons. I see where they're sitting, what the mood is, what song on the piano is being played, and I just give a nice vigil kind of look at everything that's going on in this bar. Just really get the feel of it.
And you would, in your scanning of it, you would see Gertie talking to this older man at a table.
So he would have a very like inner, not like a sigh of relief, but like a little, a little fist pump, I guess, in his mind, at like just Gertie, at finding Gertie, because he knew that she was here, but it's kind of vindicative, to actually like be right about it, when there's other people watching. Oh, look. It's like a needle in a haystack. And Cornelius would kind of like gesture with his neck or whatever to where Gertie is sitting.
Emmett would give Cornelius kind of this sidelong look that lasts for a few extra beats, and before making his way over to Gertie.
Yeah. Willem would give this strange expression to Cornelius that almost seems impossible, where his mouth will smile, but his eyes will look frustrated. Like it's simultaneously like amusing and annoying that Cornelius was right. But he won't say anything or give any acknowledgement and follow Emmett over.
And as soon as Gertie spots Cornelius approaching the table, she quickly turn her face away and like wipe her tears away.
You actually notice that Cornelius doesn't quite approach the table. As he like leads the other two to the table, he veers off to the bar.
Cool.
So he's not actually going to be approaching you or talking with you.
So she gets a little.
Miss Gertie, I don't believe we made proper introductions. I'm Constable Emmett Sterling.
Nice to meet you, Constable. Is there something more I can do?
Well, I was, and you can see that Emmett is just kind of stuttering over his words. Well, I was hoping you could answer a few more questions.
Certainly.
Maybe we could talk about your sister. And he would, I guess, look to the man, Bert. Evening, sir.
Good evening, Constable. Why are you here? Like, hasn't she gone through enough this evening?
Well, of course, this is... And he looks around and then he just kind of takes a seat quickly and kind of leans in. Listen, I was telling you before, this L group, they're not going to solve it. I'm sorry to say, but that's just the hard truth. I can't make any promises that I will, but I want to see this killer caught before something else happens. And I think you can give us some information. Help us out a little bit.
What'd they do with her?
Well, they cut her down.
Yeah, Willem will kind of lean over the table and he'll like kind of slam his hand down almost forcefully onto it, almost intending to startle. They cut her down like a sack of meat being brought to a feast. Dishonorably, shamefully, embarrassingly. They won't do anything with her. Look, you can't trust them to do anything. Apologies, Constable. No offense to you personally. I know this is a difficult time for you, but if we want answers, the only people who will give them to us are us. So, if you're not in the right state, I understand, but if you're strong enough, and to like look you dead in the eye, maybe we can do something. Get justice where the law won't.
Not only do we need to get justice for Kitty, we have to put a stop to this L group. They can't just do that. They have a job.
Well, unfortunately for us, one of their leaders related to the constable. They have him under their thumb. Believe me, I've tried. Get them reprimanded, get them off the streets, but hasn't worked. So unfortunately, though I hate to say it, it is going to have to be up to people who aren't part of the law. Like Willem said.
Humanity deserves better. Your sister deserves better than them.
And at this point, Cornelius walks up, having been at the bar. He's got a little glass of scotch with ice in it. And justice, like a fine dress, costs a pretty penny. And then he nudges Emmett. Thanks for covering my tab, by the way. As he takes a big swig.
Please tell me you didn't get the top shelf this time.
No, I couldn't reach.
And I think at this point, Emmett would actually take the thing out of his pocket that he had taken from Kitty.
And I think at this point, Bert would actually lean across and put his hand on your hand that's going into your pocket. Not here. There's eyes everywhere. We want to do this, and you're doing this so the L Division doesn't get wind. You can't do it here in this bar. Come. You can use my office. You can use that as your headquarters or whatever you want. Nobody will bother you there.
That's a word I haven't heard in a long time. It's like finding an old newspaper clipping you've tucked away in some pillowcase. Hidden long to forget about all the terrors of the world. Headquarters.
Willem will let out a sigh. Well, enough riddles. And he'll look again at you, Gertie, and then over back to Bert, and then back at you. Can we trust this man?
I certainly trust him.
There's no one more trustworthy than a man with a pen. I guess a printing press in this case.
Thank you, Bert. You're a good sort.
With that, he just kind of pats you on the shoulder. Girl, it's not right. We just do what we can. Follow me, and I'll take you to the place.
I always seem to have to take care of things myself. Why should this be any different? So I'll have to find justice for Kitty this time. Who knows what it'll be next time. And I follow.
Cornelius slams back the rest of his scotch and kind of clang. The glass hits the table where they were all sitting. As he turns tail and heads out as well.
Yeah, Willem will follow, and I'll kind of put a hand on each of your shoulders, Gertie and Cornelius, as we leave, and I'll just say, "That's the spirit." And you can't tell if he's saying it to Cornelius or to Gertie about the scotch or the justice, but.
Emmett pauses for a moment and to pay the tab that for Cornelius's drink before following them.
And you find yourself 4 rights lighter than you used to be. And you go across the street following Bert, and he takes you to that the printing office. And he opens it up and leads you upstairs to this room that kind of overlooks the press below. So you have it's like a big office room that he's got his desk, but there's also like a working table and an kind of an open area with this big table in there that people stand around looking at the the proofs that have come out, and his desk, and it's, for all intents, it's fairly private. There's just the one door, like the stairs and the door up into it, and it overlooks. It's got like the glass panes that will look down into the printing press area below, so you can see people coming in. It's a good vantage point for that. You're not going to be surprised here, and nobody, I mean, they have to come in through that door. So he brings you in and says, here, set up whatever you need. My space here is yours until you find this monster. For my Gertie.
Cornelius takes him for his word here, finds that chair, leans back in it, and kicks up his feet onto the desk, leaning back.
All right, we should compile. If we're going to work together, we have to have a certain level of trust. We should put out everything we know right on the table right now. I'll start. And I think with that, Emmett would take out the thing from his pocket.
And so now for the first time, you get to see what was this crumpled, this paper that was in her pocket. And you take it out and you carefully unfold it, and you can see that it's a pamphlet, like a one-page kind of pamphlet advertiser for a music hall called the Elephant Castle, which I believe you have had some experience with. The Body Music Hall.
You all hear kind of a sharp intake of breath as Emmett kind of folds out this paper. And for those who are keener looking at him, he shakes his head ever so slightly. She was also missing a right foot. She had her skin removed from the side of her face. Her eye was removed. Garlic was shoved in her mouth, and the garlic flowers were in her eye. I found that piece of paper, and that is all that he saw.
At the mention of garlic in her mouth and garlic flower in her eye, Willem's eyebrow would raise curiously at that. And I can make a roll if you want me to, Karen, but would that mean anything to me that would perhaps not mean something to them?
Absolutely. Make a roll. I guess lore.
Like, that be occult? Or...
Yeah, or cult, yeah. Yep.
Difficulty?
Oh, I'm sorry. Let's make this one an easy one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's just one?
So one purple, yeah.
Perfect. That's a success and nothing else.
Okay. So for you, you know for sure, like the common people, they've all heard about, garlic and vampires, and that they're kind of, they don't mix that well. And that's all fine and good. But actually, that garlic also has another meaning. And the fact that you found it in this missing eye socket and in the mouth makes you think that it's not just somebody who was just pretending about the whole vampire thing, but more that this is not like to ward off, but was almost an invitation for something. And you're not quite sure what that is, but you know that there's something here.
Yeah. After the initial impact of hearing garlic, and then kind of processing it all through his brain, his brow would then furrow, and he kind of lean onto his arms. And he'll like look at Gertie with a sorrowful expression. I don't say this lightly, and please don't misunderstand my meaning. In a way, I think she may have brought this upon herself. I don't say that callously. Put garlic in the mouth, in the eye, to invite dark things upon yourself. Scarier things than men.
Enough with this talk of darkness. Emmett just kind of slams his hand down. Do not scare the poor woman. Her sister just died. How dare you?
Garlic, isn't that for scaring away vampires? Isn't that what legend says?
Legends say many things, but they misinterpret many things too. A word to one thing is an invitation to another. These things cannot be done callously. They must be done with proper form and proper ceremony. Different things have different meanings. Execution, small pieces matter. They'll say just completely ignoring the criticism from the constable, acknowledging Gertie's comment.
And Gertie finds a piece of paper and she does sketch out what they saw. And she labels the music box, and that's what she calls it, music box with an arrow. And what of this? What about this music box? What is that all about?
An orchestra is what Cornelius says. He's leaning back in this chair. He's picked up some paper that's on the desk. Doesn't care how important it is. He's crumpled up into a little ball and kind of like just tossing against the wall. It like kind of lands and gets tossed against the wall again. It's an orchestra. The music pulls us in ways by the sound of it all. It rises, it falls. So too, like strings of a puppet master. There's merit to what the word on the street is. Like how there's merit to looking at the stars each night with the crumpled piece of paper.
How useful, he'll say mockingly, despite the fact that he's just recently put forward vampires as his most logical guess.
Cornelius, show them what you found.
Yes. He kind of like fumbles. Can't quite find it because he's checking all his pockets. Here it is. And he's going to kind of slam down the desk a muddy, soggy, just crumpled up handkerchief. And he'll kind of unfold it, and you'll see that in one of the corners that there's that bloodstained fingerprint. He says, kind of pushes the cloth with like one finger. Bet you your bottom dollar that it's not Kitty's fingerprint here. And he says, bet your bottom dollar, not bet my bottom dollar.
Yeah, Willem will like lean in curiously, especially kind of locking eyes with the fingerprint. Then he'll just kind of shake his head and kind of eye up towards the constable. Not much I can do with the fingerprint.
You know how? It's a quite a funny thing. We find ourselves here in a newspaper press office. Plenty of ink here. You know when you read a paper, your fingers smudge. Perhaps we can get a smudging of our own. Of that poor Kit. Go out of her fingers. We can match it up with this, or maybe not. If it's not a match, well, we can see how much of a theory vampires having fingernails and fingerprints will have to be.
So what, you're just going to walk into the L Division's offices and take her body?
He like says nothing.
Gertie looks
He's not like he's not confused. He's just like, yeah.
Oh, Gertie looks at Willem in absolute horror at that suggestion.
Before we go romping around into police headquarters, let us maybe go down other avenues. And he points to the label on the handkerchief, and he looks to Gertie. RM, does that mean anything to you?
Well, my sister's name is Kitty Bridges, so all I know is it's not her initials.
RM. Who are you, RM?
Right.
Cornelius,
Do I know of any RMs from my CD underbelly adventures?
you could give me a
Yes, streetwise check.
streetwise check. I wonder what's his. Yeah.
What kind of
This-
difficulty would this be?
This will be hard. So it'll be
So
three.
three purples?
Yeah.
And I have 2 skill, 1 that. Okay. I got a success and a threat.
So you're going to take another strain for this, or because you're thinking really hard, and you're
And
thinking
it was a pretty deep bottle of scotch.
yeah,
Glass of
you're
scotch.
you are thinking about all the criminals that you know, and you're going through all of them in your head, and one by one you're knocking the names off, and they don't match. Nothing matches. And then it's like it hits you all of a sudden. You're not sure, but the music has something to do with this. And it's almost like something connects. And you don't think that the RM is somebody in the criminal underground necessarily. Not that you know of anyway. But that maybe RM has something to do with the music.
The elephant in the room. Emma, can I see your note?
And Emmett would just kind of slide the thing over to.
This is the white elephant note, if I remember correctly. All right, good. My pun was not lost there. And he's gonna like look it over, like seeing if he can recall the locale of this, who runs this place, any kind of rumors or kind of mishappenings that have happened around this place.
You can give me another streetwise check about
All
this
right.
one.
Same difficulty or what?
No, average difficulty on this one.
That's a 2 purples.
Yeah.
1 advantage.
Yeah, so you don't really know or can think of any of the rumors about the Elephant Castle at this point. What you do know is that it is a kind of a lower class music hall. It's kind of body. You know that other activities happen there, as it were. There's women of the night, etc. Lots of vice actually can be found inside the Elephant Castle. And that's all you're going to get from this.
And he kind of like pushes again with a forefinger this note of this little music hall. It's a diary. It says all the things you'll ever want to know, and all the things you'll never want to find out. That's our lead. I'm as sure of it as sure I am of the summer of 26. He leans back again and pulls another drag on a cigar. And he kind of just leans his hat down to cover his eyes and probably catch him snoring now.
Listen, I don't like the idea of going to the White Elephant. But it might be our only lead. Or one of our leads. That is the most easiest to do. And I think he would look to Willem. But what about you? What did you find?
Beyond just the visible maiming that you described, the skin pulled, and he'll like go to continue into more detail that you gave, and then kind of wince at himself and eye over to Gertie, and the rest of it, he'll say. We're missing quite a bit of blood, an unusual amount of blood. Yet, no blood at the scene, no blood on the body, nothing visible that would show a struggle even happened. In fact, as I was leaving the scene the first time, couldn't find any trace that anything had ever happened in there. It says 2 things. Either the crime didn't happen in that room, they were brought in there to be displayed for some reason, some purpose, explicit, decided, or something else happened that led for a clean delivery despite all that, if there was a conflict. This was meticulous. Furthermore, there was strange fluid came from the body near the neck where those 2 puncture marks I mentioned were. I managed to get a slight trace of it, though not enough to figure out what it was. It had a chemical odor, nothing natural. As if she had swallowed cleaner or something like that. It seemed as if it were to come out from within her, but I couldn't verify if that was the case. Either way, 2 very curious elements. This was no just mere killing.
Curious
These things were done
elephants.
on purpose.
Two curious elephants. That's what Cornelius says underneath his hat.
You said they just cut her down and took her away. Might there be more to learn at the scene? The music box must still be there
They took everything away. And I reckon they probably stomped around a good bit too. We can go. But I'm hesitant to say that there would be anything else.
And I think we're going to call it there. As we watch these 4 individuals looking at these meager pieces of evidence that they've found about this horrific crime, and poor Gertie barely containing herself, keeping composure. And we will leave them there and call it a wrap. Thank you, guys. And with that, you guys can do your outros and plug whatever you want to plug and carry out. We'll start with Megan.
Hey, I'm Megan, and this game was awesome. I love the beginning. Usually, it's very tough with first sessions to get everyone kind of together who doesn't really know each other, and to get them into a cohesive group. And I think you did a very good job of doing that. And I think it felt very, very natural, which is awesome. So I'm really excited to see the kind of relationships these characters are going to have, because they all seem very, very different. So I'm looking forward to that. So thank you.
Thank you. You guys are doing great. Jeff.
I'm Jeff. I have my own channel as well. It's called Encounterbalance. If you want to see any of the stuff that I do, I also do a podcast with a dear friend, Jeremy Lilly, called the Dudes of Yore. And we're actually going to be doing our next live episode of that this Sunday. It's going to be at 12 Pacific. We're going to be talking about player investment and things like that. So if anything of that sounds interesting, you can either catch it live at the Dudes of Yore channel on Sunday at 12, or you can catch it recorded after the fact there as well. And yeah, I'll echo the fact that this session was a lot of fun. I think it kind of helps that we all have this kind of strange cavalier attitude, which kind of helps that bridge the weird social awkwardness gaps, because none of us actually care about being socially acceptable in our own ways, which makes it really interesting. Starting an investigation is always kind of difficult because you never know which breadcrumb to follow and what to do with it. But I think I'll echo what Megan said. You did a really good job of kind of giving us enough to feed off of in the first session to really make me curious about where it's all going to go. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, thank you. And I'm totally tuning in for the Dudes of Yore on Sunday. That's awesome. Connor.
Hi, I'm Connor. I was the witty one-liner Private Eye. I'm looking forward to discovering where this cookie crumb trail leads and to see what kind of elephants await for us. Yeah, thank you a lot. I can echo the sentiment that was said here prior of how this is one of the most cohesive, like, strongest opening acts to a campaign that I've probably ever been in, which was congratulations. It's always like what I personally struggle with the most is like trying to find a really good beginning. And you did a spot on job with this, and I'm really, really happy to see everything just like forming together in cool ways. So congratulations.
Thank you very much. And my one question to everybody is, do you think we'll actually understand Cornelius by the time this is done? Because I'm having trouble.
I'm not convinced that there's anything to understand.
And last but not least, Chris.
Thank you so much for running this session. It's
We lost you.
Yeah, lost audio.
Going out with a bang.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, never fails. The cat starts dancing around on the desk and my sound cuts out. Anyway, thank you so much for running this. I am loving seeing how such an investigative situation works with this system. And yeah, I echo everybody else. It was an awesome first session. Great way to jump in. And boy, that twist. Woo! So yeah, thank you. You can find me over on the Dargon Gaming Squad, although we haven't been very active lately. And you can also find me on CJ's Kitchen if you're looking for some recipes for some goodies to eat while you watch these games. So thanks.
Thank you, Chris. And everybody who's mentioned the channel, I will put them into the description of the video later when it gets posted. You guys were amazing. Thank you so much. Your characters are great. I cannot wait to see how you guys interact and where you take this investigation. I am so very much looking forward to our next session. So thank you so much. And I think with that, I will call it a night and stop.